Hello, I'm Sarah Reilly. This tutorial has been added onto YouTube completely free of charge. It's a full-length tutorial for you to settle in and enjoy painting with me. If you enjoy this, please come over to my Love Country studio, which is my online school where I have lots of lovely tutorials broken down for beginners and people wanting to challenge themselves a bit more. There's a free 7-day trial to come and explore the whole workshop. So click the link in the description to come over and have a look later. Please also subscribe. I'm a really new channel, so really appreciate your support. So let's get into the buns. What we're going to do in this tutorial is I'm going to focus on helping beginners understand the difference of consistency. So I'm going to explain which consistency of paint to water I'm using with each brushstroke. And you'll be able to see on the video, I have a photograph, my reference of my buns, and I also have the tea to butter consistency, little sort of cheat sheet, so you can see as a reference which consistency I'm talking about. And hopefully this is going to really help you to build up your layers and your tones and get depth into your picture. Before we go into our tutorial for our hot cross buns, I've just filmed how I set up a new palette, which I thought you might quite find interesting. So here I'm just squeezing the fresh tubes into a blank palette, and I use a lot of browns for my animal paintings. So what I wanted to do is to compare the difference between the Winsor & Newton professional watercolours and their other offerings, such as Cotman. There's also Aquafine. So what I've done is I needed some new paints anyway, so I bought some of each, and I thought it might be quite interesting to put them all in a palette together, which I've never done before, so I can have them side by side, because there really is quite a big difference in colours, even when they've got the same name, because they're a different series. So this is what this exercise is for. So on this one here, this one was a bit stuck, it wouldn't come out. It's dried up a little bit on me. So what I've done here is, if you've got anything like this, if it's still moving inside the tube, it's absolutely fine to use. Just squeeze the end and then use a pair of scissors just to cut that off. And then you'll be able to squeeze that into the little empty container. And try and get all of it out. Fill up 2 pans if you need to, and maybe just cover one with a little bit of cellophane and save it for later so it doesn't get dusty. This paint goes a really long way, and you don't want to waste any. I like to use the end of a paper clip. If you just pull it out, and then you can use that as a tool just to smooth and push the paint down into your pan. You never get a really nice smooth top to it, but don't worry, you'll soon be dipping in with your paintbrush, so it doesn't matter. And that's it, I can pop that one in. And that's the last one, which is the sepia. So then I've cut up a small piece of watercolour paper, the same as what I normally paint on, and I'm going to use that as a little swatch, and I'll write the names of these paints down, and then I'll paint them on, and we can have a little look and see what the difference in the colours are. Okay, so I've written them all out. I've written them in a pen, so they last a bit longer than pencil. And then just with a small amount of water, I'm going to try and make the top of the squares a little bit thicker, and then blend this down and water it down. So I get an idea of what it looks like when it's thicker application and then as a lighter wash. So the first one's raw umber with Winsor & Newton Professional. And this one here is raw umber, which is the Cotman. That's better. It's been a bit tentative with how much I was putting on there. I'll just blend that. It's one of my absolute favourites, raw umber. I use it an awful lot. Now you can see there's quite a big difference between the Cotman and the Professional. They're both raw umber, but really different. This is the burnt umber, and the first one is the Cotman. It's a lovely rich colour. We're going to use that one for our buns. And this is the burnt umber, the Winsor & Newton Professional. And again, you can see the difference in the colour here. Same name, but the slightly different brand gives you quite a different colour. Now they're all really good quality. They just have different colour. So it just depends what you're painting, what your preference is. You may find that you don't need the more expensive one. This is the burnt sienna, and this is the Cotman, and then the next one is burnt sienna, the Winsor & Newton Professional. These are really similar in colour. The Professional version is a little richer and ever so slightly darker, but there's not a lot of difference in this one, the sienna. But the raw umbers and the burnt umbers, there's quite a big colour difference. And then lastly, we will have our sepia, which is the Cotman. I use this an awful lot as well. And that's as far as I'm going to go with this palette. I may well add more browns to it. But for now, these are the ones that I purchased. I've got plenty of space to add some more. But if you find you paint, a lot of roses and you use a lot of pinks and that sort of thing, you might want to think about buying a small palette like this and filling it with all your pinks. You might find it handy, to be able to just grab it quickly. So here's a close-up of the colours once they've dried, and you can see they are all really different. So I'm going to look forward to painting my hot cross buns with these. So once you've got your drawing laid out, you just want to take away any hard edges, just to avoid the pencil from showing when you've got your paint layers on. I just like to go around the edges, just take anything away that looks a little bit too heavy-handed. Just so you've got you just want a guide really. So just do it so you can just see where you're going. It should be about right. It's just quite annoying when you get pencil marks where you don't want them on your finished drawing. There we go. So once your drawing is in place and you're happy with it, then you need to choose your brushes. I'm using a size 6 and a size 4 rounded brush, and I'm working with some new paints. So I've got a mixture of different browns here. If you've watched the little warm-up video I've done, you'll see that I've got some Winsor & Newton Professional colours, and I've also got some Winsor & Newton Cotman. So these are a bit cheaper, this series, and these are more expensive, the Professional ones. And I wanted to lay them out for you so you could see the differences. So you get different tones with slight variations of different makes of paint. It's worth testing to make sure you're getting the ones that you want. And a lot of the times the cheaper ones can be the colour that you want, so you don't have to buy the most expensive ones. For this exercise, for the hot cross buns, I like to plan my colours a little bit beforehand. So I've done my swatch here, but I also had a little play with layering different paints. Now what I've decided for my buns is I'm going to do the raw umber Winsor & Newton Professional paint, and then I'm going to go over with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, just check that's right, burnt umber, the Winsor & Newton, and the Professional one as well, because they're both new to me, so I want to have a play with those. And then the burnt umber Cotman, which is a slightly cheaper one, this one here, I quite like that one as the last finishing touch. So that's my plan. So these are the ones that I'm going to do for my buns. I quite like the colour of that. They look nice and golden brown, like they've come out the oven nicely. So they're the ones we're going to have a go at. So I'll turn that over so that it doesn't distract me. And I'll just use this as my bit of scrap paper that I like to have next to me. So once you've got your paints and paper ready, we can dive straight in. So what I want to do with you today is to go through the tea and coffee to butter exercise. We've already run through that, but I wanted to have it here so I can tell you which consistency I'm using at what point, and you can follow along and paint along with me. And hopefully that's going to give you a better understanding of how to implement this into an actual picture, so it all starts to come together and make sense. So I'm going to start with the base coat, which is going to be my raw umber, which is this one. And let's get a nice little mix of this. They've come fresh out of the tube, so I'm going to have to be a bit careful. They're going to be really vibrant. I have to make sure I get the right consistency. So we're looking for, tea's a little bit anemic, so I'm going to go more for like a coffee. Something like that. You don't want to be too heavy on your first layer, but if it's a bit too weak, then you're just going to have to go over it. So if I can get it how I want it, it's just going to save me time. There we go, about that. And then I'm going to go over all of my buns. I'm also going to dip in the water, and I'm going to dilute that a little bit more as I go along. And what I want to do is just to leave a few little sort of raggedy spaces, just for texture and interest, because there's a lot of texture going on here. It can be a bit daunting knowing how to approach a subject like this. I say just go for it, just have a little play and see what works. But I quite like leaving some gaps there. So I'm going to paint it like that. I'm going to work quite quickly because I think I get more of a randomness if I sort of hover about a little bit, almost as if my paint brush doesn't want to sit still. So, and give it a bit of a wiggle here and there so you don't get too straighter lines, because there's not really much straight line going on in there. And hopefully by the end we're going to have a nice look of sort of that fluffy texture of the bread there. So something like that. Try not to overthink it. Just get a little bit more. Let's keep checking you've got about the right consistency so you don't go too heavy. And then I'm going to take each little section of the bun at a time, and I'm going to put a base coat over here as well. I was just leaning in my paint then. Every single time I lean in my paint. Does this happen to you as well, or is it just me? I do it all the time. It's infuriating. Okay. So I'm rinsing and dabbing, and I'm just going to pull that paint to dilute it a bit more because I really want it to be light on this edge. Plus, I want to get a bit of a shine going on here. Paint this bit in here. Where does the end of that cross go? There you go. It stops about there. And then I want to just leave a bit of a light bit there. And then what I want you to do is rinse, dab off onto your paper towel, and then just soften around. So you're just kind of smooshing it. I like to call it smooshing. That's what I tell my students. Very technical. But it feels like you're sort of smooshing it. You're not pulling, you're not pushing it around. So no upward, downward moments. You just kind of smoosh. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to catch just between the dry paper and just catch the edge of where it's wet. I'll show you that again when we come over to this bit. Once you get the knack of it, it just sorts out so many problems in painting if you can just keep sort of softening your edges so you don't end up with those hard lines that you might be trying to avoid. Some pictures you want your hard lines, but others not so much. They're not your friend. Okay. So I want my highlight sort of here. Come around there. Right, now, so I've dabbed off on my paper towel. Let me pull my paper towel here so you can sort of see what I'm doing. So I've dabbed it off, sort of just a little damp, but I'm not adding any more water into it. That's the important thing. And then I'm just softening that edge. Smoosh away and just make sure you haven't got any hard lines. Rinse again, so you're not adding any paint or any water in. You're just using your brush sort of as a tool, and you're just softening. And you see you get that lovely little glow effect. Got a bit of a puddle over there, so I'm going to take that out because I don't need that. Okay, we'll get some more paint. Oh, quite a bit. I'm constantly dabbing on paper towel. If you're not doing that, you may find you're adding too much water into your painting if you're getting into that, or you're not adding enough. It's just about getting the right sort of feel. So then I'm going to blend that down so it lightens as I move down. We're going to have lovely shiny buns by the end of this. I'm using different paper today. This is Arches. I will list which one it is. Otherwise I'll have to stop what I'm doing and have a look because I can't remember. It's going to be cold pressed though. Definitely be cold pressed. Don't really use hot pressed paper. Not a fan. Now I've added quite a bit of water in there, and if I don't sort that out, I'm going to have a bloom there. So I'm just going to go over this bun a little bit here, just to make sure that's nice and even. So rinse, dry, and then just blend the edge. So you're shrinking that circle, but you want to leave a little white bit in the middle. That's going to be a beautiful little shine. I may be making this look easy, but I promise you, with a bit of practice, you'll get there. You just don't want to over fiddle with it. Otherwise, you just end up pulling all of this forward, and you don't want to do that. You're just softly, softly blending at this stage. Okay, so give that a moment to dry, and then we're going to move on to the next bit. Okay, so I've let this dry a little bit, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go in with a whole milk consistency, and we're going to move to our next colour, which I'd chosen. Which one was it? The burnt umber. I'm still using my large brush. If I get a nice mix of that, and then we need to mix up the consistency. Now, whole milk is sort of 50% water to 50% paint. So we're looking for richer consistency. That's a little bit more like cream, so I'm going to add a bit more water into that because I want to have enough here. That's better. It's moving a bit better, and it's stronger than my first application, which was more like a coffee. So hopefully this is starting to make sense a little bit. So if you mix the right consistency, you'll have the right sort of fluidity on your brush, and it's going to be rich enough for what you want. So I'm now looking to put a nice sort of bronze over the top of my buns. Now, if you're looking for a smooth finish, you can neatly fill in your edges, or you can go a little bit more raggedy if you're looking for something a bit more sort of, I don't know what you'd call it really. There we are. So I want to blend it in to the layer underneath. I find it difficult to talk and paint. So if I start to say something and I stop, do forgive me. It's because I'm kind of concentrating on what I'm doing. I do like to do voiceover, sort of sit and watch back my videos and do the voiceover afterwards because it's a bit easier. Whereas when I'm painting, you kind of need to concentrate, don't you? So I'm going in with a warmer layer on the top. And then what I want to do is I want to blend that into this nice layer that I had underneath of the raw umber. And I'll get this nice gradual tone. Just want to warm that up just a little bit more because that is quite a nice, actually, because that's quite watery, I'm going to have to go in again. Mix it again. It's okay, we can mix and mix. That's a bit more cream. There we go, it's better, a bit more milk. This is a bit more watery. I just want to go over that again. Rinse, dry, control how much water you've got. Then I can move it around. But I'm not adding more paint in. Just want to protect my little glowy bit there. There we go. Bringing that down a little bit, warming the bun up a little bit. And trying to avoid any harsh sort of watermarks and lines there. Okay, we'll go to the next section. As I say, you can have a nice straight line on your buns, or I like to leave it a little bit more sort of, not raggedy as such, but it's just a little bit more. I think it just looks nicer if everything isn't perfectly in line. I don't really like really straight edges. Now I've got a couple of pockets there where it's not quite covered, and I quite like that, these tiny little marks. If you do have something like that, just consider leaving them rather than feeling like you've got to fill everything in, because it can look really nice if you just have a few little sort of lost edges and spaces. It's all part of the watercolour. It can look quite pretty. Okay, there we go. I want a bit of a sort of a wonky edge there. Now I'm running out of paint, so I'm going to have to add a bit more. Loving this colour. It's really like a toasted bun, isn't it? How's that? Yep, lovely. Okay, I want to make sure I've got enough because this is quite a big bit here. And I like how it sort of bumps over. I'm going to exaggerate that, how it bumps over the little cross area. Oh yeah, I'm loving this colour. Okay, so keep drying it off. I'm just going to do our little blending and smooshing around the edge. You see we've got quite a warmth here as well, so I want to bring that down a little bit. But I'm making sure I don't completely cover that nice layer here that we've got underneath, because we want all those different light, mid-tones, dark tones all working together. That's what's going to make this look really nice at the end and realistic. Okay. There we go. And remember to sort of stand back a little bit as well, so you can kind of see how it's coming together. Try not to work too up close, and remember to sort of stand away a little bit. I'm just going to warm this up a little bit. You've got a little bit of artistic license. It doesn't have to look exactly where the shine is, unless you're going for hyperrealism, which I'm not. I'm sort of using this as a reference, but I'm kind of just enjoying doing what my buns want to do, really. I want a nice bump on that, which is lovely. And then I'm going to rinse it and dry it off, because I want it to be a little bit lighter as it comes towards the cross, just a little bit. Pay attention to those little blending edges, and it all starts to build quite nicely. So there, we're warming them up now. Now it's kind of like ugly duckling stage. It needs a lot more work. So don't worry if you're thinking, oh, they're not looking right. Don't worry, you're at that stage. There's lots more to do. Don't despair yet. I have a lot of students that think, oh, it's not going to get, I've not done it right. Just trust the process. You probably are in the right place. It's just you've got some more work to do. So while these are drying, what I want to do is look at a butter consistency here, because it's not often I do butter, but that's why I liked putting this tutorial together, because it allows us to use all these different consistencies in one lesson, so you get to practice them, which is great. So what I want to do is use the same colour I used for my base coat here, which is I'm using raw umber. So I'll get some of that. Hang on, I'm talking and not thinking. You need to dry your brush off, like really, really dry your brush. So it's really, really dry. And then you need to just tap at it to pick up some paint. That's going to feel a bit sort of ticky-tacky. Hear that noise? That's what you're looking for. That's it. And I want to get that kind of that rough texture on the side of the buns. You hear that noise? That's what you want. You might have to just keep going in and reapplying your paint. Hear that? That's what you want. And just keep working it off on your scrap paper until you get that, like it's almost running out. You just want the very last bits. This is your dry brush technique. I don't really like doing it because I always feel like my brushes don't like it. They want to be in water. But look at that. It's given us a lovely bun technique. So I'm just going to rinse my brush. Try it again. Just pick up a bit more paint. Because you need to have enough paint, but not much water. There we are. And I think it's better to do this in like little sections. So you just try a little area. Just make sure it's working. And I find like a little side to side little wiggle gives me just enough. Otherwise you might end up with like long lines. You just have to sort of, it's a bit of a slow process, but it's quite nice. Just go with it. I put quite a bit on this one. So that would be too much if I went in with that now. Got to work it off a little bit. There we are. Ticky-tacky, ticky-tacky. That's how you know you've got it right, if it feels tacky on you. Ticky-tacky, work it off. So slowly does it, I think. If you go a bit too like gung-ho and go straight into it, you might end up with a big mark and you think, oh, that's not what I wanted. So just, your scrap paper is your friend here, so just slowly but steadily. Need a bit more paint. There we are. And then what we'll do is we're using this sort of as a base coat for our texture. So we're slowly building it up, and then we'll go in with sort of finishing touches, and when we add the currants and things at the end, it will all come together nicely. There. So I'm going to leave it like that for a minute. Now you could go over with a darker layer as well. Shall we try that? Let's have a little think. We could switch to the, I don't really want this colour because that colour isn't there. It's almost as if we have a bit of raw umber in there. I'm just going to try it on a little bit. My instincts are telling me that might work. So we've got like 2 tones of colour in here. And just, there we are, that's better. Remember, you need more paint than water to make this work. Just try it on a little bit. That might be a bit forgiving. Oh yeah, that's giving me a bit more depth of colour there. So I'm adding raw umber in, so whatever colour browns you're using, just go for one that's a slightly darker tone, but not really drastically. You know, you don't want to jump to sepia or something. That would be just a bit too much. So just another brown that works nicely with it. And that's just going to give us a bit more texture with a different tone in there, and that's nice. That's adding something to it. It does take time. I have to exercise patience when I do this, which I'm not normally very good at. It just feels so strange to apply such dry paint. It's quite alien to me. But again, this is why I wanted to do it, so that we can do different things together. It's great if you're doing this sort of technique would be great if you're doing sort of landscapes or lots of rocks, like a seascape or something would be really nice. Or sort of if you're doing trees and you wanted to scrape down the bark of the trees, this is like a really good way to do that. Okay, I'm going to leave that there and I'm going to carry on working on the tops of the buns. Then I'll come back and have a little look with a fresh eye on this bit. So yeah, this is all nice and dry now. Make sure your buns are dry before you carry on. So I'm now going to add a darker sort of toasted brown onto the top of my buns, and this is my sort of darkest tone that I'm going to go in with, and I like the Burnt Umber by the Cotman, so that's my third one up. So it's this one. Let's have a look. Oh yes, that looks like a nice toasted bun colour. Now, consistency wise, we're looking for whole milk to cream. Trouble with cream is it's quite, it's quite hard to apply. So I'm looking for a nice richness, but I still want that whole milk sort of movement, and I still want you to be able to see through it, because I've built this nice layer here, and I want the translucency of the watercolours, you want them to all work for you. So I'm going to start over here so I don't put my hand in that bit if I do that bit first. So let's give it a nice sweep and see what it looks like. Ooh, toasted buns, look at that. So rinse off. Now it's a little bit lighter at the edge here. I'm just going to softly blend that down. So I'm going to allow the bit near the cross to be a little bit lighter. And then I want to soften that edge again. I want to bring some of this brown here because that's really warming up that side of the bun now. Okay. And then I'll do the same on this one. This one's pretty much, the whole thing is kind of covered in this dark. I'm going to blend it over the top a little bit. So this is staying sort of the same, and then we're just richening it up a little bit with this toasted bit here. Lovely colours, these. Working really nice together. Oh, I've gone over a little bit. It's okay, we can fix that. Okay, I'm running out of paint here a little bit. Now I'm going to purposely leave some little gaps because the bun kind of has all this texture going on. If I do it too smooth, it doesn't really look like a bun. So we want it to look like a bun. So I'm just going to let it have some sort of dips and movement in it. And hopefully that will make it look like a bun. Get some more paint. A bit more. Yeah, about that. That feels right. You get to feel the consistencies, and you can just tell that you've got enough on your brush. It just takes practice. The more you paint, the more you'll feel it. There we are. Just wanted to warm that bit up a little bit. Now this bit is really toasty here. You might not much want to go over all of this. You can see how it's coming off of my brush now. So another tip, always start at your darkest point so that as you work your paint off, your lighter bits will be last. So it kind of comes around here. Do I do it? Yeah, go on then, let's go in. We're going to really darken this one up then. I need to blend this edge here. Let's bring this warmth around a little bit. I'm going to keep my shine. I feel like I need to close the gap a little bit and warm her up there. There we go. And then it is even darker than that. This is quite toasted here. I'm going to apply a bit more bit more strength of colour. Sometimes you have to be a bit brave. It's almost got like, almost like it's just been caught. It was almost in the oven just too long. So I'm going to go in a little bit while it's still wet and just allow that to move a bit, because it's quite nice. You get these markings when they're still wet. Try not to over fiddle. Just let it. There we go. Yeah, you get a nice mark if you just done that while it's still damp. Just added more in, and you can do that with the buns. This is going to work really nicely. Okay, so we've got a lighter bit here and it's quite toasted at the back. So I'm going to do the back first. And this is great if you've wobbled at all on a previous layer. You can kind of correct that now if you want nice sort of rounded edges. I'm going to leave that little bump because there is a little bump there. Then just blend the edge so it's slightly lighter towards the cross. Just gently, gently. And sit back a little bit and, you know, just have a little look at it. Bit more paint. So we're getting really quite toasted over here. Again, it's got this little line nearer the cross at the front. I'm going to pay attention to that. Try and pay attention to what you see. You've got a better chance of it coming out looking like what you want. There we go. So we'll do a nice, just one single sweep there. I don't really want to mess with that now. I'm just going to let that naturally dry. I'll just tidy that little edge there. Have to have a fiddle. It's terrible, isn't it? The biggest problems in watercolour is you just want to fiddle just a little bit more. Okay, oh, I'm quite watery here. I want that just a little bit thicker. There we go. That is quite, yeah, it's quite thick, but I want it here. This is the bun where my eye really goes to in the painting. So I'm really hoping I can get this one nice. I don't want to disturb this lovely shine I've got. So I'm going to just go from underneath and let it catch. Because I want to encourage some of this colour, but I don't want to disturb this nice shine I've got going on here. But I do need to richen it up. A little bit more, I think. I'm going to have to put my brave boots on here and just be a bit bolder. Just go for it because it is rich and warm there. I need to warm it all up. Yeah. It's okay. I think I'll be rewarded for being brave there. Again, dry and then soften, soften, soften. Let's get this nice shine going here. Oh yeah, like it. Bit of a hard edge there. Could have left that, could have softened it. I'm going to leave this one. Am I going to leave it? No, I've got to have a little fiddle. There we are, that's better. I've got a little line here that doesn't look right, so I'm going to just fill that in while it's still damp and I can get away with it. Okay, and again, a little bit of mist there. I'm just going to go over that just a little bit. Be careful not to disturb layers as they're drying because they don't like it. Okay, I'm going to just stop there, let it dry, let it settle, and I'm just going to walk away for a minute because I want to come back with it with fresh eyes. That helps you to stop overworking. So have a little break here and we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so I'm changing my water because it looks like that. So make sure you change your water here, guys. And a little bit of fresh paper towel as well because I end up with it absolutely soaking wet because I rinse my brush a lot. Okay, so to help me to see the tones in my picture, right now the white crosses look quite stark. This is a photograph, so it always goes a bit darker on a photo anyway. But I just want to darken this just ever so slightly, and I'm looking at the tea consistency because I want to make sure we've used all our consistencies. So I'm just going to mix up the raw umber, which is what we used as the base coat, but I want it really, 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 really even more watery than that. Like really, really watery, like that. So it's really like the tea consistency. And then I'm just going to give a little wash over my buns. Just like that. Just a little bit. And I'm not going to go up to all the edges and fill them in perfectly, because I want to sort of keep that feeling of it's a bit shiny. Because when you've eaten hot cross buns, you'll know that this bit here, quite thick. The dough, or whatever you call it, you put it on. I normally pull it off. I don't actually like to eat it. I find it's just like raw. I don't like it. I like the actual bun bit. So I don't tend to eat this bit. I'm going to apply it, and then I'm going to go over with a wet, clean brush just to sort of smudge that a little bit more. But it's helping me to water it down. And then see the difference that makes. It's kind of brought everything together, so I don't have really stark lines. And again, if you go a bit gentle to start with, it gives you the option later. I can warm these up later if I want to at the end of the painting to bring it all together if I think they need to be toned down. But right now, by keeping it quite soft, I've got the option later. Now I'm just going to go along while it's damp. I've got it ever so slightly a bit more on my brush here of the paint. I'm just going to run it around the edges. And that is a lovely, lovely effect, because it's just bleeding into that drying layer of the lighter application. And it's just blending in really nicely for me. And because I can see it's a little bit darker on these edges, by paying attention to that, it's rewarding me with this sort of 3D look, which is really cool. So again, let's mix up really milky tea. That's a bit too much. Okay. And just a little bit more on the edges, just ever so slightly. I'm going to let that one touch. That's it. And maybe you can do a little bit more later, but that's really nice how it's just, I've just dropped it in and it's just bled really nicely where it's found the wet paint. That's really nice. I'm gonna leave that alone. So stop fiddling, hands up, don't touch it. I've managed to get a smudge, look. Such a messy worker. I don't know how I manage it half the time. It's all right, it's not a masterpiece. It's just for tutorial purposes, but it's annoying. So there we go, we'll get rid of that. This Arches paper is really nice. It's really thick and textured. It's lovely for this. It's I haven't stretched it and it's holding really nicely. Okay, so now we want to pay some attention to the side here. We've added some texture and I think we need to start building this up. If you think you've got too much texture, you could kind of soften. We could go in and soften. So let's just do a little bit of that and see how that looks. So you've done the work of putting the texture lines in, and now we're just going to undo a little bit of it. It's just a bit too much going on. Not all over, I'm just being a little bit, maybe there, because I can see there's sort of an edge there. I'm going to soften that in a little bit. There. Okay. Now what I'm going to start to do is I need to pick out what colour I'm going to do for my, I've got really dark black currants here and I've got lighter sultanas. So, and they're all different sizes. They're not sort of round spots. They're all different. I've got a big dent here. So I want to start putting all this texture and interest into my picture. So I need to decide what colours I'm going to do. So if you go in with the wrong colour, I think it's just, you're just making it harder for yourself. So I think raw umber, I mean, it's my go-to paint. I do love raw umber. What do we think for sort of a currant? I think that's quite a good currant colour. Should we have a look? There's a big currant over here, so if we put him in, try and give him a bit of a wiggly shape. And again, this might be kind of slowly build it up. Just add a few little currants here and there. The reason I'm choosing the currants first is because they're a lighter colour. and they're going to be easier to blend in. If I don't like it, I can change it. If I go in with the dark ones, they might look a bit harsh, and that's harder for me to see if I've got it right. Because if I go in with sort of like these little lighter bits, I start to put these sort of lines in, these markings, and then you've got a bit of a current there. I think you don't want to go in sort of too harsh, so you can put a line in and then kind of soften it back out again. You slowly start to build up that kind of texture and interest. Like that just needs to be a little bit darker there. Drop that in a bit there. The more you look at this, there's so much going on in these buns. As I say, I'm not going for sort of a hyper real effect. I want them to look like buns, but I want it to be a nice sort of fun painting that we've enjoyed doing. Okay, so let's go in with the darker sepia now. And I'm looking for a whole milk consistency, leaning towards cream, but be careful because I just want to water it down a little bit. Might strengthen them afterwards, but I'm just erring on the side of caution at the moment because this might be dark enough for me. I might not want it as dark as what I actually see in this picture. It might just not work for my painting. I'm just going to slowly encourage a few sultanas and raisins and that here and there. Strengthen some of these. Quite a dark bit there. Loads on this side. Really fruity bun. I have to say it was delicious because after I took the photo, of course, got the pleasure of eating them. Lovely, really lovely. I'm going to take a bit of artistic license here, and I don't want to do too more. It is quite dark here, but I'm going to err on the side of caution. I want them to look fruity, but I don't want them to look like they're so stuffed. They look like they've got the chicken pox. They've got so many spots and raisins in them. I'm holding off doing the top ones till last. I just want to focus my attention on this bit. You can also, as well, if you find it easier, you can sort of cover some of your picture if you just want to focus on this so you're not distracted. That's quite a good tip as well, and you can literally just focus on that one bit that you're trying to replicate. That can help a little bit as well. If you find it's quite a lot going on for your eyes. So raw umber. Just gonna sort of rough it up a little bit. There we go. Feels like it just needs a bit more. Yeah. I'll try a bit with the darker colour, with the burnt umber. There's this sort of crusted bit at the corner here. I feel like I can go in with this a little bit and get a little bit of detail here. If I get in these little shadow bits in, it starts to help everything that's going on under here come together. There's a bit of an edge on this. Yeah, it's got a little bit of a crust sort of on the bottom of this going on. I'll put that in and see if that helps me, which I think it is. There we go. Again, I'm just going to go with the raw umber. I'm just going to kind of splodge it on a little bit randomly and just soften it a bit. It's looking like textured bun, but paying a bit more attention to the shapes that I see now. So if I've got some lines, again, helping to build up that shadow bit. Just dab it out a little bit with a damp brush that's not too defined. We just want to slowly build it up. Okay. So now I'm going to go in with the darker spots on the top. So we want like a heavy cream consistency. Want it to be nice and rich and make a very defined mark. Make sure you haven't got any drips on the edge of your paintbrush. And start over, if you're left-handed, start here. If you're right-handed, start over here. Just try and avoid you putting your finger in anything. Okay. Now try to get realistic in terms of the shapes that you see. You don't want perfect spots. They're kind of jaggedy shapes, so try to replicate them. Take one little section at a time, or you can hop about. There we are. We'll come over here and have a look. He's got one about there. And there's one that actually sticks up over there. We're going to do that. Let's do that. Oh, look. Yep. So it's got a little pointy bit. A little sort of dint there. And be careful not to overdo it. Restraint with your buns. Right. Oh, I just love the little finishing bits. It's like your little reward for all your patience. This is the fun bit. But be careful, because this is where we can kind of overdo it and, you can easily ruin them. I'm going to darken this bit now. As my sepia's dried a bit. It will always dry a bit lighter, remember? So a little less is more to start with. I actually want that to be quite dark, so I might actually come in here with a bit of black in a little bit, but I'm going to leave it for now and see. Now I'm going to come in here with some sepia. I've got quite a rich amount on my brush. It's now sort of watered down to like a milk. And I'm just going to put a little bit of texture in to see if I can get it to pop. We're putting a bit more definition in over all this nice texture we've got here. Make some defined marks. So we go down the side of the bun. It's quite dark here. It has actually got like a shadow under here. I'm going to put that in. I've been avoiding it because I didn't want to mess it up. But I think I need to do it now. There we are. See, that's quite a dark shadow there, and I need to do it. You want to be careful. You don't want to fill it in around there, because where's your light coming from? Is there actually an edge there, or is that just, you think you need to fill it in, but you probably don't. Just be aware of where your light is shining on your picture and where your shadows are. So we're working around our darkest tones now. Just want to get a bit of definition around this cross bit here. Quite nice. Quite effective if you make sure you sort of wiggle your brush a little bit in certain places so you get sort of a jaggedy edge, because this sort of the dough here that they've used to make these, it has got that little sort of raggedy edge sometimes. They're not perfectly straight, which is part of the appeal of painting them. Just going to put a couple of little marks up there. It's like a bit of a pocket there, but it's lighter than that one, which is good because this is wearing off on my brush now. So I like to move around, so you put the darkest bits in first, and then as it comes off your brush, you can then do the lighter areas. So always be conscious how much is on your brush. I think this is going to pop in a minute when we do our shadow underneath. I'm just going to spend a little bit more time just going around and adding in a little bit of shadow. There we go. But this is why you have to slowly build your tones up. If you go in with the dark tone straight away, you're going to make it harder for yourself. So just gently build up the tones in your buns. If they're looking a bit too rich, try to sort of pare it back a little bit. If they're looking a bit anemic, let's get some colour on there for you. Warm them up. We don't want underdone buns, do we? No. Okay, there's a bit of a line there. Your eyes are taking in so much information. You think I can't see where I am? You hop about a little bit. Okay, I think at this point I want to get my shadow in, because that's going to help me visually to bring the whole thing together and know how much to do before I sort of finish. So I just need to get a black. So I'm just going to use straight black out of my pan like that. Now, as you add more water to it, it's going to thin it off, and we want to get a nice gradual shadow like this. So I'm going to use quite a rich consistency like this, which is your cream, but it's moving quite fluidly. Look, it's not getting stuck. So it's not near the butter. It's just a nice fluid application here. And then deep breath and go for it. I'm going to run this down the side. I'm going to do one bun at a time. Just make sure it's not too watery. If it's too watery, you're gonna lose. It might start running or dripping. I'm doing this on a bit of an angle on my easel, so I have to be careful. Right, now rinse your brush. Make sure you've got some water on your brush, and then I just want you to catch the edge of it as you come down, like that. And then again, you go back in, you catch the edge again, and you're slowly pulling that paint, and you're getting a lovely gradual shadow. You don't want to keep going into the top layer, so you just glide along the bottom, nice and fluid. You can go backwards and forwards a little bit, make sure you've caught it all. Rinse, dry again, and then again, just on the edge. I'm not going into the top layer, I'm not disturbing it. I don't want to pull loads of black down. I want it to thin with each little layer that I'm doing. There we are. Now you see the illusion that you get when you sit back? If you've got a hard line, then you just soften it again. Keep going in with clean water and just keep tickling the edge until it fades completely off for you. And you get this lovely, lovely effect. There's a little bit of a sharp angle there, and I've got quite a big bit here in the middle. There's a bit of water there. It really wants to travel. Be careful, because I don't want it to meet up. It doesn't meet up on my picture. There we go. Just trying to control this edge so it doesn't go where I don't want it to go. There we go. You get that lovely. Just take it back a little bit, control it, because it's traveling nicely. Now, again, I want some black on the side. Decide where I want it. Stops about there. That bit's a bit thicker there, so the shadow kind of changes a bit. And then do the same thing, just catch the edge with some water. You just don't want too much water. If you do, you can end up in a bit of trouble here. It just needs to be just damp, and you just touch the edge and then you catch it, and it will start coming with you. It's up to you how far you want to bring it. Okay, and then just a little bit there. Be careful this bit. I just think it's a bit harsh, so I am going to soften my little shadow, even though it's quite sharp. I don't want it to be that sharp. I'm just working at this because I don't want it to be too harsh. Bit of artistic license. There we are. Just keep working at it until you are allowed to fiddle until you kind of think you've got it about right. There you go. I'm happy with that. See that lovely granulation that's going on where the paint's moving. It's really, really nice. That's just a normal black paint. It's not a granulating paint, but the arch is paper. It's moving really nicely. Like that a lot. Okay, so now that I've got my black paint, I'm going to mix that into the, what is that? It's the burnt umber cotton. So I get like a browny black. See? Because some of these currants really do stand out. I don't want black spots, so I just want to darken it a bit because I put 2 layers of the sepia and they've dried just a bit too light. I just need it to pop a bit. So I'm going to go in with some black, but I'm going to be a little bit careful because I don't want to ruin it. But now that I've got the darkest tone in there, the rest of it looks a bit different to me, so I can kind of judge where it needs something now. And these are my sort of final touches to put the detail in, and how far I want to go with it really with the detail. So this is quite a nice, to sort of give it a bit of a shadow. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint this in this bit here. See, there's this shadow. This is actually the perfect colour for that now. I'm happy with that. There. I don't want to fiddle with it. I'll let it dry. Hopefully that might be dark enough. And then this bit here is kind of a shadow as well. I feel like I can sort of do some little edges and roughy tufty. Yeah, with a very light consistency of the black and the burnt umber together. You see, this is quite nice. That's like a coffee consistency. And this is actually quite nice to add these sort of texture lines where it looks like you've got like these little ridges and things going on. That's actually quite nice. So let's just use that, dot it about a little bit. Just have some fun with it. Last final touches. You don't want to be too long here, otherwise you may overwork it. Just some little random marks. They're sort of drying on me, which is quite nice because I'm getting texture. Okay. I would say you're almost done at this point. All I want to do is just slightly warm up some of the edges on my crosses, just for that last little pop to make it look real. There, that works really nicely, look. Just that little bit of contrast in this dough. Just, I feel like I can't really see it, but I feel like I want to do it. Just want to darken that a bit. Yeah, my instinct was right. That is giving it a little bit more of a 3D effect in there because it was a bit anemic. I didn't really like it. Oh, look, I've actually missed a corner. I've completely missed a corner. That's better. I was missing a tiny bit of my bun, look. Did you do that as well because you're following me? If so, fill in your buns. Yeah, so I'm just going to indulge myself here with a few little here and there to make this stand out a bit more. And I think we are done and we probably need to stop messing about. I'm fiddling. I'm in the fiddle zone. Stop me. Somebody stop me. Actually, if you put a few little sort of dots, do you see where the glaze is there? That is actually a little bit effective there. Just making this up as I go, folks. Yeah, that's quite nice actually. But I think we've got a nice texture. We've got a nice shine. We have our shadow. This is bugging me. I have to fiddle. I'm sorry. I need a little bit here. There is a little dark slice, which is really nice there. I feel like I've got to get it in there a little bit. It's quite dark. You're in the danger zone. Don't want to over fiddle, but you want definition. There. I might fiddle a little bit more. The trouble is as you do something and then you come back to it, it's dried a bit lighter and you think it's not quite there. So you feel like you do just need to just give it something. And this is like your instinct with painting. It sharpens in time. And by ruining things and overdoing it, you do learn when you over fiddled. It's very hard to resist, I know. Okay, I think I'm going to leave them there. I hope you've really enjoyed this. This didn't actually take us that long, did it? But it's a really nice study where we've used our tea, coffee, milk and heavy cream and butter all within one picture. So hopefully that exercise now makes more sense to you as well. And I think we've done pretty well. I'm happy with my buns. I hope you've had fun and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Please take a second just to hit that subscribe button for me. It really helps me out. As you can see, I'm quite a young channel. I've got a lot of growing to do and I really want to continue to share really nice tutorials with you. So hit that button and leave me a little comment if you had a go at painting these buns with me. Thank you.